Welcome to the Floor Stories podcast, brought to you by Flooring Pros Marketing. Okay, we are recording now. We're here with the Floor Stories podcast. This is our second episode. We're here with Kristin Stensby of Showroom Pricing. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, and I'm here with my co-host, David Riqua, as well.
Good morning, everybody. We're excited for episode 2. What new stories can we reveal today?
So Kristen has a great journey in the flooring world. She comes from a flooring family, has worked in retail, showroom, done a lot over the years in terms of selling floors, and then has also started a flooring software service for flooring retailers around the US as well. So we're going to get into her story in just a second. So before we get into your floor story, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little about, who you are, where you are, and what you do with your time outside of work.
Well, I'm really excited to be here and kind of share some of my journey. I live in St. Louis with my husband and my 2 children, and really probably my biggest hobby is planning travel. I love to travel, both through my job now and jobs I've had in the past. I've gotten to do a little bit of travel, a little bit overseas, but really my passion is like planning wonderful vacations for my family and my friends, and then executing on them, which is probably the best part, right? The worst part is when it's over, and I don't know, I get to start over, so maybe it is the best part.
My wife is often planning our next vacation during the vacation that we're currently on. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
That's amazing.
Nothing like a good vacation spreadsheet. I gotta say, I do love it.
I gotta get some of your templates then.
Yeah,
that would be great. Where was the last one, and any memorable?
So we took a really memorable RV trip a few years ago, and we did like kind of all through Utah, which was so fantastic. And we did Zion and Bryce and Canyonlands. It was just phenomenal. It was really, really hot, and we didn't let the temperature ruin the trip, although it was definitely a big player. And we waited a couple years, and now we're getting ready to do another big RV trip, and we're going to do the Badlands, Yellowstone, Grand Teton. And I'm not a camper, so for me to say I want to do a camping trip is a pretty big deal.
Does the RV help with that?
The RV does help. I'm not in a tent, and that's a big part of it.
What's the most memorable meal or maybe cold beer you've had on any of these trips? What made it so good?
Okay, maybe not cold beer, but several years ago, we took a trip to Italy, and every single table wine I drank in Italy was phenomenal, and I didn't have a single headache. So table wine in Italy, you don't even got to buy expensive stuff. Just the stuff they're serving to you is good enough. It was great.
That's incredible. All right. So what's your favorite thing about living in St. Louis?
I can't say the weather because it's kind of miserable. Summers are real hot and humid. Winters are pretty cold. I think I just love it because I grew up here. It's home for sure for me. My husband's a transplant. He came from Wisconsin. It's my family. It's my place. I love being here.
Love it. Awesome. All right, so we're going to get into your floor story right now. I want to just understand, how did your journey begin in the flooring industry?
So I am one of these people who grew up in the industry, and I'm sure if you talk to enough people here, if you grew up in it, it's really hard to get away. Even if you try, you still end up back here somehow. So my family's had a flooring store for about 40 years. My father started it in our basement, and so I was quite literally ingrained in it from the very beginning. When I was growing up in high school, I worked in the office. I helped with payroll. I did all of the things, answered all the phones, did bids and estimating and things like that. So really, it just from the very beginning, I've been pretty immersed in it. And my father had a rule when we were growing up that we could come back and work for him professionally, but we had to go do something else for a couple of years. I was a flight attendant for several years, and I kind of traveled around for that. And then when I was ready to come back, I had to interview for my job, and there had to be an opening. And I came back to work for him professionally in more of a marketing kind of space, and then eventually moved it back into estimating and doing my own estimates and selling commission-based for my father. We were sand and finish store to begin with. And then we slowly brought on other products, carpets, at the time LVT wasn't a thing, but bringing in LVTs and other laminates and hard surface, but really hardwood was and still is kind of the heart of his business. My sister also works there. And while I did leave, she's still there. It's still under family rule and, 40 years strong. It was really great. I'm really very lucky to have worked and gotten my start that way.
This podcast is brought to you by us here at Flooring Pros Marketing. If you'd like some help telling your floor story, reach out to us at sales@flooringprosmarketing.com or visit our website at flooringprosmarketing.com. Have a great day. Yeah, that's amazing. It's really just a great operation that you guys have running there. So that's good to have sharpened your tools there. So
I definitely did, yeah.
Do you remember the first sale you worked on or the first job you sold?
Gosh, I don't remember the first one I sold. I think I tried to forget several of those. But my dad, I don't know if this was a good teacher moment or a bad teacher moment. Essentially, he was kind of learn as you go, trial by fire kind of teacher. And once I kind of knew enough to be dangerous, he sent me on my way. And I think I cost the company a lot of money in the beginning with bad estimates, bad measurements, things like that. But it's that type, at least in my experience, that type of learning curve. You make a couple of mistakes and you learn quickly on what you did wrong and you can fix it. So I don't have a story about first selling. I have a lot of stories about costing the company money. Under not knowing that a commercial carpet had a yardage minimum or something like that. And so I didn't order enough and it was too small of a ballroom for that order.
Whoops.
Yeah.
So the early days when you were independent, you applied for the job, you started working, must have been challenging, especially, working under your dad and with your sister in a family environment. Were there times where you questioned whether or not that it was the right path for you?
I think anybody that has worked with family, not just in this industry, but in any industry knows that there are a lot of tiers and there are things that always bleed. So, it doesn't matter if it happened at home and then you have to go to work with these people who are your family. You do have to have kind of the mentality of keeping some of this stuff separate, but it doesn't matter how much you go into it that way. There will be some overlap and it is a lot easier to be hurt by those people, but it's also a lot easier to forgive. So the trials that I have had working for my father and with my sister were very tough, but I also don't think I would change that time for anything because I actually am the oldest of 4 kids and I have a brother and a sister who went and did something else. One's an engineer and one's a doctor. And they will never know my father or my sister the way that I know them professionally. Mm-hmm. And the time I got to spend with my family it's very different. It's on a completely different level. And it is just something that I will always cherish. And I think that if you do have family work for you, they will, or they can outshine the best other person that you could hire, right? They'll always care more. They'll always have like a deeper understanding of what you're going through. And yeah, I consider myself very lucky to have spent that time with my father and my sister.
Yeah, that's wonderful. May we all have the opportunity to work alongside our loved ones. That would be great.
As long as it's positive. I've heard horror stories too.
My 20-year-old is kind of going through that right now. He's in the business with me. He's been in it. Started when he was 15, boxing up stuff in the warehouse. And to your point, it's my favorite thing about that is that it brings us closer together. We get to spend time together. We're not in the same office. So we're now a few hours apart, and the time that we're on the phone and doing Zoom calls and things like that is like, I just so precious to me. So I love that part of your story as well.
I love it. It's something unlike, I can't describe how lucky that you are, and how lucky I feel to have had that time. I mean, my dad's still around, my sister's still around. I don't work with them anymore, but it's certainly a special time. And it was very hard when I did leave for that reason.
So before we get to when you did leave and start your new journey in the flooring world, tell us about that time where you were, starting off as a estimator and doing sales up to the point where you left. What were the biggest learning moments and challenges and things that you really loved and both found and also found challenging learning that industry?
So, I don't have some of the same hurdles that other people who get into this industry as adults solely. I had a really good foundation of flooring before I started selling it. Uh, Certainly, it was very challenging to learn to measure. That was very hard for me going into people's homes. I wasn't a young lady, but I was a young lady. Sometimes I was showing up to job sites where it was predominantly men. But one of the things I found really easy right away was I mostly met with the homeowners and the wife or something like that. And that was really easy for me to connect. So connection wise, selling residential was really kind of second nature for me. I loved that. I loved getting into people's homes and seeing how they lived and seeing how they decorated their kitchen or how they put their projects together. It very much influenced the projects that I did in my own home, seeing what other people were doing. And I wasn't looking at it in a magazine. I was like literally going through those projects and processes with them. So it changed me in a lot of ways like that. And I just enjoyed meeting the people. I've always been a people person. And so this kind of it was very natural to me to take the parts of the job I really loved, meeting people, seeing how they live, and then just being, oh yeah, by the way, I also sell flooring. Here we go. And I think it really helped me have a connection with all my customers. And I have always been a believer that people buy from someone they like. And I guess people disliked me because I was very successful as a commission-based salesperson. Something I really enjoyed. If there was a part that I would say was the hardest for me, was feeling like I was always on call because I was a mom at home and my husband does travel for work. So when I was getting phone calls at 8 p.m. at night from a customer who just got home from her job and she's mad about something, those were difficult. And that was probably what made it easy to walk away from estimating and sales. I know not everybody sells that way. More retail shops probably don't get those kinds of phone calls. I was certainly managing my own projects, my own jobs, and that added that layer to it. But that was tough. But I got through it. I only had to fire one customer after all that.
I got you beat.
How many did you fire?
A lot more than one.
Well, firing my customer actually it is kind of one of my favorite stories because I never actually sold the job. And she was probably my only terrible review. And I never even sold the job.
Let's hear about it. Yeah.
Well, she was from the very beginning, very particular, which was kind of my specialty. I had a lot of particular customers and we went through picking out carpet over and over and over again. And she was very specific about not wanting to overbuy for her home value. She wanted to buy all wool and she was going to put wool carpet throughout both the first and second floor of her home, which she lived in a very nice home, but to put wool carpet wall to wall in your entire home, you do need to be very careful about the wool you're buying so that you do not kind of price yourself out of your market, right? This was not her forever home. And when we finally settled on a product, she wanted some guarantees that I just was not really ready to give her for her wool carpet. It was a loop. There was just some things about it. And I said, I just don't know if I'm the right customer. I don't know if I'm the right salesperson for you. Maybe we're not the right company. She called me that night crying. I've never been fired. I'm so upset. Please, please, please don't leave me. I need you. I want you guys to be the ones that do this project. And I just had to very politely continue to tell her it's not the right project for me. I don't feel comfortable taking your money with guarantees I just can't give. And the next day, she wrote a very scathing letter to my father about what a terrible person I am. And a very terrible review online about how terrible I am. And I believe I met with her 10 times in my showroom before I fired her. So I felt like I had given it everything I could give.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I never took any money from her. And her review was quite scathing. And you know what? I left it online because I actually am also a believer is people will read what they want to read. And if every review of yours is perfect, that's very unbelievable. Her review, I think, still lives online. If you could probably Google it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let it be a lesson that if you're doing things right in business, you're not going to please everyone and not everyone's going to be the right fit for your business. So let people read good reviews and bad reviews. And I agree that if it's just glowing reviews, it seems a little bit fishy because we know that not everyone is going to be the right fit and people are, sometimes you come across people that you just can't please.
Yeah. And even when we're selling flooring, it's very much a human interaction kind of transaction.
Very much so. Let's talk about, the transition into your showroom pricing days right now. What point in working for Champion Floor in the retail space, doing the commission based sales, did you start thinking, hey, I think I got something else here that I want to pursue?
So for me, when you own a company, when your family owns a company, you just wear a lot of hats. And my hat that I was given for the store was keeping our showroom priced. And I can tell you, it was 2017. There were the Chinese tariffs going on. I didn't even sell that much Chinese product. That really wasn't the deal. It was just the influx of emails of price changes. I said, I got to do something else. I can't keep up with this. I'm commission based. I can't be spending all my time repricing the store. I got to be selling. And I looked for a solution and I could not find a single applicable software for what I wanted to do. So I tried some restaurant software. That was a big fail. And I reached out to someone who is now my business partner, Dave. And I said, can you help me with this? You're a tech guy. I need to find something, or I need to build something. And he goes, Kristen, I promise you there's a solution out there. There's no way. And he goes, give me 2 weeks, come back in 2 weeks and said, there is no QR code software for the flooring industry that can do this. Instead of me helping you build it, can we be business partners and build it together? And I thought, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm just doing it for my store. So sure, I'll go into this business with you. And we built it for Champion to start. And it was very much a learning curve. I was still working for Champion. Yes, I had this business going to build the software, but I was really just building it for me. And once I got some of the stuff worked out, I thought, this is actually working. And I can't be the only one struggling with this. Maybe instead of selling flooring, I should sell software. And I quit my job selling for my father. And I started, He was incredibly supportive. He was very happy for me, and he is still a paying customer. He does not get his software for free. He does pay for it.
No family discounts here.
Yeah, no family discounts. And it's really been a wild ride since. I was very nervous to leave something that I had so much success doing and kind of leap out and go, well, maybe this will work. But I was very confident in what we had built. And I knew from the track record of my own store that we could do this. I won't say I didn't get laughed at for a while, because I did. I met a lot of closed doors in the beginning. And so I really felt like I was going to have to build this brand from the ground up with not a whole lot of help from anybody else in the industry. And I'm really glad I built it that way, because it's been so much fun. And I've learned a lot, more than I thought I was going to learn.
Let's talk about some of the things you've learned. What have been some of the best things that have come from growing the business from start to to where you are right now, startup, and what have been the most challenging things that you've overcome?
So the most challenging thing was definitely the closed doors at the beginning. I really felt like I had something that was important to dealers. They are struggling to get the pricing out on the showroom floor. And I knew it because I was living it. And there were some other tech companies in this space that just said, this is kind of a dumb idea. Nobody needs this. And I don't know why you're spending your time doing this. And that was really kind of very much had me second guessing myself. Well, maybe I didn't know what I was doing, and that's why I was struggling with this, but everybody else did. But if I could turn that into the best thing that is about this industry, is I now have talked to stores, and my software is in hundreds of showrooms coast to coast in the United States and into Canada. And I can tell you that everybody was struggling with this, because I've talked to them. I've talked to owners and sales managers who said, thank goodness that somebody, whether they buy from me or not, has some sort of solution. And yes, they are struggling it. Even the guys that I meet with, I demo the software and they just realize it's not a great fit. That's totally fine. I'm telling you, they're still struggling with with pricing their showroom, because that's why they made the demo with me, right? And I talked to them at the beginning and they say, yeah, we are struggling with that. And everything that you could possibly think as a flooring dealer, are we the only people that can't figure out what margin to set? Are we the only people that can't find salespeople? Everybody's struggling with the same thing. That's all I can tell you. Is as hard as you think it is for you to figure out how to set your margins, there's somebody else in this country that is also struggling, wondering if they're doing it right too. A lot of times when I set up a new piece of software for a showroom, we might set the margin at a specific range just to start, right? They can adjust all of that stuff. And I say, okay, well, we set you at maybe 40% margins just to start. And I say, is that where you want to be? And they say, I don't know, what is everybody else doing?
I
Is
hear
that where
a
everybody
lot
else has
also.
set
Then
their
you have that
margins?
data, yeah.
Yeah. So it is, as much as we always feel like we're kind of alone with the struggle, we are not. And that was actually very reassuring to my own kind of psyche for the way that I was doing business with my father, right? Like, am I doing this right? Are we doing what everyone else is doing? And we were, and everybody else was struggling with the same things.
Do you have any recollection of maybe one client success story that really propelled you to get past that doors being shut in your face? There was like one, story that you remember. It's like, okay, I am really onto something here, that gave you the energy to keep on pushing
Yes.
through those challenging times.
I've had some, honestly, fantastic clients, dealers that I now consider friends because we've just done so much wonderful business together and bounced so many ideas off. But there is a guy in Florida, and when I was first demoing my software for him, he was very early in the demos, and I was maybe 2 minutes into the demo. I showed him a QR code. He scanned it with his phone via the Zoom call, and he goes, "I'm in. Don't even tell me anything else. I'm in. Let's put it in. You've sold me." And I was like, oh my gosh, well, that was easy, right? He put the software, he put it in his showroom, and somebody that is a wonderful, wonderful person at Shaw walked into his showroom and saw what he had put in. And that opened up several doors for me, which was amazing because he was such a believer, which made them a believer, and what propelled me to be part of their approved vendor program. And the Shaw Flooring Network has been really good to me. Their dealers and their corporate has been, I'm not paying them for that, by the way. I don't give them any money. They've just been incredibly supportive of what I've built, and they see the value. And I don't think I could have convinced them without that dealer in Florida.
Oh, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So shout out to that dealer in Florida.
Yes.
If you could go back and change anything in your journey, whether it be through Champion Floor or through showroom pricing specifically, would you?
I don't know if I would change anything. I wish I would have been more confident sooner. That would be the only thing I would change. But I also think that I couldn't have built showroom pricing if I hadn't done all of that work at Champion Floor Company, the ups and the downs, learning how to sell flooring, learning how to price a showroom, being in charge of a project like that, knowing what that scale entails. And then honestly, if those 2017 tariffs hadn't happened, I don't know that I would have even built the software. The tariffs were good to me. They were good to the business. COVID, that was a terrible time for everybody, but everyone learned to use a QR code.
QR
So
codes,
COVID
yeah.
was very good to me.
Exactly. And what was I going to ask here? Is there anything else that you'd like to share about showroom pricing, the evolution, how it's evolved since your inception to today?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was really just a data management system for pricing a showroom. And it was very simplistic. And as we met other dealers, and honestly, in the beginning, it was based on how I did business, right? Because I was building it for myself. And as we met with other dealers and saw how they were doing business, and we were looking for ways to kind of incorporate their requests, feel like built a much more inclusive and comprehensive program where we can do more than just price a showroom. We can help you with sample management. We can help you with lead management. We're working with cloud-based data, trying to get away from binders of spreadsheets and price sheets for these dealers, which I know people are still doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then helping even some of the vendors that they work with move over from something that is very archaic into pushing for them to have not just cloud-based data, but good cloud-based data. And that's been a huge, I think, drawback from this industry moving more towards that, is the data wasn't always very good. And anyone that uses RFMS, Q floors, any of those pieces of ERP, if they're using that and they were on B2B early, they will tell you that the data was bad. In the beginning, it was very bad. I was really lucky I didn't have to deal with a lot of that because as things evolved and the technology has kind of leapfrogged over, the data's gotten really good. That is one challenge I'm still dealing with, but not at the same level that they were for many years. And as more and more vendors come into this kind of cloud-based they're really getting it. And that's making it so much easier on the dealers. And that's one thing that, having been a dealer, I think helps us stand out. I see the issues that they're dealing with. I understand that they are not experts at spreadsheets. They're experts at selling floors. And how can we evolve our software to make sure that their life is easier? Working with AI models to try and bring non-cloud-based data into the software, something that we're spending a lot of our research on right now, building out ways to improve that particular kind of keyhole of the project.
I love that. Have any of the dealers that initially slammed the door in your face, have they come back and are they clients today?
Not so much. It wasn't so, I have had lots of people that I've worked with, talked with. I have a demo with them. And then a year later or 2 years later, they're like, okay, now I'm ready for this project. A lot of the door slams came from other tech outlets and vendors. But I will say, I think that I have paved the path for a lot of other tech in this industry to go down this path. They laughed at me in the beginning. Nobody needs this. And now I think you'll notice there are a lot of other pricing options for people's showrooms. And if I've done nothing, I feel like I've left my stamp on the industry by, pushing them to do things that the dealers really needed.
Love that. Let's talk about some particular, some flooring favorites and tales from the showroom or from the job site, whether it's champion floor days or showroom pricing days. Do you have one flooring project that stands out as your favorite?
There's a store in LA, Orange County area, and they are one of my favorite showroom pricing customers because they were so enthusiastic about coming into this project of pricing their showroom with QR codes. And they were believers right away. And they sing my praises from the rooftops. And that's Melissa and Jay, and they are with Family Floors in LA. And they are just fantastic people. They've been so great to work with. And they priced 3 showrooms and like 5 vans in 2 weeks, which is unheard of. Nobody does it that fast. And a big question I get with people when I start a new piece of software is, well, how long is this going to take me to price the showroom? And I said, well, I don't know. I got this couple in LA that could do it in 2 weeks and they had 5 stores, So they are kind of like one of just my favorite people that I've worked with. Project-wise at Champion Floor Company, not a project I necessarily worked on myself, but my father growing up, he is the only St. Louis store to have ever won the NWFA Floor of the Year in St. Louis. So it was a big deal. It was the year 2000, so it was 25 years ago. And it was this incredibly intricate project. Looking back, the technology that we had in 2000 is obviously very different. And this was a beautiful, if I remember correctly, a maple floor with like a curly Q in the kind of inlet of the stairs. And my father drew that out on our living room floor on huge, big tracing paper, and then took his drawing and literally laid it out on the floor. And then that is where this piece of stone was cut out of the wood and then put in and then inlaid into this wood floor. If you go back in, you can find it online. It was just a beautiful floor. And now they've got all these lasers that are cutting all these really intricate designs. But this was something that was done and an amazing award that my father company won. And the guys that worked on it were amazing too. But to see it go from my living room floor to the front of a magazine was pretty awesome.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side, in terms of favorites, like nightmares or some awkward jobs or stories you've worked on, you told us about the bad review there. Anything that stand out in terms of something that you would tell people to avoid?
I would say know the minimums when you order commercial carpet. That was a pretty big one. That would cost us a little bit of money. The only thing I can say, I honestly was so lucky. We just had such a great customer base. My father had built such a really nice, industry. People knew what kind of work he was doing. The customer base that I kind of inherited from that was fantastic. And I don't have any nightmare customers besides the lady that never was my customer, right? But I would say that for anything, it was probably projects where I was the hardest on myself, where I made mistakes. So don't be, my only advice for that would be, don't be so hard on yourself. Learn from your mistakes. Don't make the same mistake twice. I will tell you, I never ordered another commercial carpet after that without checking to see if there was a minimum order. That one was pretty bad, but I did all kinds of cool things. Beautiful churches in downtown St. Louis, beautiful ballrooms in Wildwood, and then also really cool penthouses. I loved seeing all of it and being a part of all of it. And every once in a while, like I said, I would get calls at 8 p.m. Be a good, My only advice for that would be answer the call at 8 p.m. Don't wait till 8 a.m. It's worse. They're more unhappy at 8 a.m. than they were at 8 p.m.
Yeah, if they're comfortable phoning you, that means they're
Yeah.
an important person.
Yeah.
In
And get a good deposit, because you're going to get those phone calls. You make sure you've got a deposit.
What kind of flooring do you have in your home?
I have a 5-inch wide, long lengths up to 16 feet, rift and quarter white oak floor. And it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And I have that throughout the first floor. And then the second floor, I've got, a boring carpet, but I've got a beautiful runner on my stairs. But the white oak floor, that was a piece after my heart. I love the long lengths. We have a pretty open floor plan, so you could really see these beautiful 16-foot long white oak boards. And it's really been a beautiful addition to our home.
Love it.
Yeah.
And in terms of, being involved in the industry and working in the showroom, and as well as software adjacent to the industry, are there anything in the industry that absolutely drives you nuts that you would wish would change or improve?
I wish that the vendors would get on board with what's easiest for the dealers. Not every vendor, there are some that are just so fantastic to work with. They get it. Their data is good. Their reps are great. And then I always get other reps that are giving us pushback. And the only thing I can say is when there's pricing on the showroom floor, it's easier for the customer, the end user customer, which is easier for the dealer, which means we're doing sales, right? So if the vendors could just get on board and make things easier for the dealer. I know it's expensive to get this data organized, and it is a big ordeal for a lot of, especially smaller vendors. But if you've got less products, we can help you get that data into something that's more manageable than a PDF that they're sending out. And pretty much, there's a huge customer base that is dealers that are still working in like QuickBooks. So they're not using industry accounting software. So I get it. They don't have to have their data in a cloud to download to a RFMS or something like that. But everybody's kind of moving in the direction of cloud-based data. So if the sooner that these vendors can get on board, the sooner that there's an even playing field for the dealer to buy, not just from the big guys, the Shaws and Mohawks and Doll Tiles, but also from smaller vendors. And the smaller vendors that do get on board, I have noticed they're doing better in sales, at least from my customer base. They want to sell smaller vendors because it's easy to get the data and it's more manageable. And there's usually smaller display anyway, so it's easier to sell off.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you would be a good person to ask this question because you've already kind of broken through in terms of building out technology to improve the industry. You had mentioned, you're working with some AI stuff as well. How do you see technology advancing this industry in the next 5 or 10 years, and how would you like to see it? What's your dream vision, not just with showroom pricing, but in general? This podcast is brought to you by us here at Flooring Pros Marketing. If you'd like some help telling your floor story, reach out to us at sales@flooringprosmarketing.com or visit our website at flooringprosmarketing.com. Have a great day.
Well, I think automation is happening, and I don't want to see it take the place of the salesperson. So I'd like to see AI and tech companies like my own not try to erase the salesperson. Don't try to be a Lowe's. Don't try to make everything automated. Still have something for the salesperson to do, right? Because I think as long as we keep this person-based and people-based, there is going to be a lot of really great jobs in the future for people in this industry, design-wise, sales-wise, running that business. We don't want to replace everybody with like an automated ticker giving the price and assuming that that's all the customer wants to know about the carpet. So I would say that would be my kind of cautionary tale. Don't build your showroom so that you can't, or that you don't have to replace salespeople. Salespeople should be important to your business. But I think AI can make that job easier. We can do more with these price sheets, making them easier to read. A big part of the industry complaint that I hear is I can't find anybody to sell. I don't have salespeople, or I don't have installers. I can't solve the installer issue. But I think if we make this industry a place that people want to be, then finding good salespeople should be pretty easy. Salespeople are out there. You can teach them flooring, and using these tools, AI and software like my own, to teach them this industry, I think most people will agree you can't get out once you're in. So get them in, teach them flooring, and they'll be lifelong flooring people. They can't get away.
It's true. It's a wonderful industry.
It sucked Daniel and I in. We're
Yes, exactly.
And maybe the good part about us kind of like as an industry dragging our feet in tech is that there is a lot of room to grow. So it's not something that's quickly being replaced by robots, if that makes sense. I think that if you own a flooring store right now and you've got installers, that's a good job to have. And I think that's a good industry to be in, because I don't think that sanding floors or installing carpet is going away as a trade anytime soon.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What's something you wish every new person coming into the flooring industry or trade, understood from day one?
That's a tough question. What do I wish they knew from day one? I guess that we're filled with really great people, and it's really a relationships-based business still, which is kind of nice, right? I know it has its drawbacks, but know your rep right away, get to know the products right away. And if you're coming into sales, be an educator, don't think about selling the products. Think about educating your consumer, and you will have lifelong customers. They will look for someone like you that is not trying to just sell them the next best thing, that's educating them on good products to put into their biggest investment, which is their home.
All right. We'll end off with a little bit of rapid fire questions. Just to end off on a good note here. So what's your favorite flooring type?
Hardwood.
What's one tool you can't live without, whether it's software or something else?
My laptop.
What are some, flooring must-haves, whether it's in a retail showroom?
Smart salespeople and an aesthetically pleasing layout.
What's the most underrated flooring product?
Hardwood.
And what is a dream flooring project for Showroom Pricing?
A store in the Midwest that has like 20 locations.
All right. If you're listening out there and you have a store in the Midwest with 20 locations, then you could reach out to Kristin Stensby from Showroom Pricing. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your floor story with us.
Thanks, guys. It's been really fun. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, Flooring Pros. Thank you so much for spending your time and listening to this episode of the Floor Stories podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share with our audience, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out using one of the methods below this video or go to our website. Just search for Floor Stories podcast and you will find the form to be able to sign up. Have a good one and thanks for listening.